that's when you have capital. So, going into that lending side, being a private money lender in real estate, what are some of the things that, you said even you, right, that you didn't see that coming. What are some other things though that you would like give as pointers to people that want to get into the lending space? What's going on, everybody? I am so excited today. Hey, another blessed day here to be here. Today, again, welcome to my channel. We're going to be talking about a little bit about lending in the real estate space. Today, I have a special guest, Justin, all the way from California. Justin's part of the communities I'm part of, and he also started a Facebook community where he shares a lot of tips and knowledge. Kind of gathered everybody that's doing that's into lending, and we're learning from each other what not to do. So definitely connect with Justin. He'll share his bio later on. But Justin, thank you so much for being here with me, man. I know you're out in California; it's like huge difference, but thanks for taking a Friday and here chat with me about private money lending.
Yeah. Hey, I'm happy. Look, I love talking about real estate and real estate adjacent business, particularly with people who know more than I do, but happy to talk to people who know less. I mean, it's just a fun conversation.
That is awesome, man. Well, appreciate it, man. But Justin, before we dive into like the meat potatoes of real estate, the business of what it's lending, tell us a little bit about you, man. I think I saw a post that you're into like bike riding and you're an extreme sport guy. Well, Justin,
No,
tell us a little bit about that, man.
no, I wouldn't go so far as extreme sports. I'm like, I define myself as like a rank above average in almost everything I do. Like, it's like if you picture the bell curve, like I'm always just a little on the north side of it. But yeah, so got a family, I'm an average Joe. I've worked for big companies, small companies. I have a W-2. That's my main source of my income. I'm 30, call it 30 years into a career in tech that is encompassed primarily sales engineering, and product specialist, which may not mean anything to anybody who's not in tech, but those are kind of standard customer facing roles. Yeah, I mean, I worked for Amazon, understand that highly defined environment where there is no excuses, there's no gray area, you're held accountable for delivering whatever it is, project, revenue, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So well into that, I've got a family, two boys who are awesome, and a saint of a wife. We live here in Southern California, and I've just been a mountain biker and surfer forever. I've got a lot of body mechanic issues that keep me from surfing. But, that's kind of it. Been doing real estate as like a side hustle or just an investment
Mm-hmm.
for over 10 years,
Oh,
since my first deal. But fits and starts. I'm sure it's like everybody. Fits and starts, step
right.
forward, two steps back, three out to the side, put your left foot in, do the hokey pokey,
Awesome, man. Well, definitely, being from the corporate world, you see all the structure that's behind a business, right? And when we look at it, the entrepreneur side, and people starting their own businesses, I have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this channel, and sometimes we lack that type of structure, right? We kind of just want to like, hey, we're gonna wing it and make this happen. And that's important, right? Sometimes we don't see that we do have, like, being from the corporate world, we do see all the procedures, like all their SOPs, right, that they put in place. Like you mentioned, Amazon, right? Amazon has all their SOPs, and they can't BS around those SOPs, right? You got to follow it. But as entrepreneurs, sometimes we miss that, and that's so important. And we'll dive more into that. But I wanted to highlight that because it's so important, right? When you start your own business, yes, you can take imperfect action, but as you're doing that, you got to start implementing some SOPs around your business.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff, particularly, you know, in the last 3 years, being in, you know, the Subto and Gator and a couple others, honestly. And, you know, it's interesting. There's definitely this spectrum, the spectrum of people who are like, know nothing and know so little that they're like able to go out and do something because they don't even know what the problem is with it. You got me kind of on the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, you know, definitely on the cautious side. And, you know, I learned by doing, but I'm digging out of a lot of chaos right now. And while it's educational and hopefully I'm growing, I'm also not sure it's super lucrative. And so I'm like constantly second guessing that. But yeah, I mean, people who are building out a business, if you can figure out what the rules are to put around it, you're in a better position.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, and the other thing I wanted to pull out of your initial thing you mentioned, right? The conversations you love, you know, your mountain bike and surfing, you know, and that kind of ties in into what I wanted to pivot to, which was, you know, the lending side of the business, because you understand the risk when you're mountain biking, right? And surfing. And within each business in real estate, they all have their risk, right? And understanding that risk ahead of time, like I mentioned, SOPs, it's so important, right? So, what got you into real estate, right? First, was it like, were you thinking, hey, I'm going to acquire a whole bunch of rentals because that's going to provide me cash flow and it's very little risk? Or did at any point in time did you think of, hey, I'm going to go into lending because the risk is minimal? We all know that real estate, there is risk involved, right? And how you understand that either at the early stages or later stages, it varies. But from your beginning journey into real estate, you said about 10 years ago, what did that look like to you back then?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, I found my way into real estate mainly because I'm probably constant, like these gurus, whoever they are, Carlton Sheets, Pace, you know, and 40 others. They're good at putting out this message, right? Like, you know, the streets are paved with gold, and like, you know, you're going to get rich working 8 hours a week, and whatever it is, right? And so it was part of that. It's the part of that, you know, that dream, kind of believing in that dream, to my detriment in some situations, and part like the way I'm wired, right? Like I want to go ride my bike, right? Like I'm enjoying this conversation and it's good to see you, but would I rather be riding my bike? Pretty much, right? Like, that's what I want to be doing. And like, you know, living in the corporate world, I've been on super high highs and super low lows. I mean, you're an enterprise salesperson. Like if you get, you know, let's say you get put on a performance improvement plan, which is like literally the worst thing that can happen to someone in the corporate world, right? The company's basically firing you, but like structuring it in such a way that you get absolutely nothing out of it, right? Oh, did you go away?
No, I'm here. I'm here. You're in solo. I'm
Oh,
giving you the full spotlight.
solo mode. I got scared there, like stage fright. So, and I just was, I am still to this day, like I'm really sick of working for the man, right? It's a great man. He pays well. And, you know, it's a dream on the one side, but, you know, on the other side of the coin, you know, if Wall Street decides that I make too much money or they can replace me with a robot or somebody in China, they're absolutely going to do that because their bottom line, they have one thing they need to do, and that's deliver shareholder value, period. So real estate, controlling my destiny and freedom, like constantly attracted me to it, right? And from early on, like, I don't know if you know who Carlton Sheets is, but he's like, you know, he was the predecessor to Pace and all these other guys. And he was selling this dream early on. And I mean, back when we had TVs, right? And you were watching TV late at night or something like that, an infomercial would come on for Carlton Sheets. And he's like, buy money, buy, have properties, no money down, yada, yada, yada. And I bought it. And it was like a portfolio plastic with like cassette tapes in it.
Uh-huh.
And I did something that I think entrepreneurs should never do, right? Like I went into it super enthusiastic, and then I told my dad about it, and he was like, that's a scam. Nobody's doing that. And like, I was like, oh, I got scammed, and I threw it on the shelf and didn't do anything with it. So, I'm constantly going over the mindset and thinking about these things like that. And it's like, there's just this spectrum of trying to figure out what you can do, what is real, what's not real, that I'm 30 years into one career and maybe 10 years into real estate, and I still trying to figure that out. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's part of our journey right here, that we're constantly learning and constantly evolving as a person as well, right? And change is good. Sometimes I think it's nature that us as humans, sometimes we don't want that change, right? Because of the uncertainty. But it does take something, right, for us to start exploring other opportunities and start exploring other paths. Going back to the mountain, right? You would enjoy riding a new trail that you haven't been before because it's different, right? It's like, man, even though you're riding the same bike, but like it's a different sensation when you're on that trail. So I think that correlates how us as humans sometimes, right? We stay on that same trail for, whatever that term is for that W-2, or nowadays I see a lot of young folks working somebody for like 5, 6 years and then hopping onto another job. And, I've noticed that here frequently, but, the thing is just human nature, how we're constantly changing. And then some people don't care about that risk. They're like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna make that, and I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, again, I talk about this all the time because I struggle with it, and I think a lot of people do. Entrepreneurs, business people trying to make money. You're like, what's the matter with me? Like, why am I so broken that this situation happens? I have an associate. I wouldn't call him a friend, but he's an associate, very interesting guy. I think he's a sociopath, like a legitimate sociopath. Like, I mean, he's not, I would be very, very worried about being anywhere with him in a situation where, it could get stressful. But meanwhile, he's a very successful entrepreneur. He's independently wealthy, doesn't have to work. He's got money coming in all the time for just some product he started and put out there. And that's because he never believed it wasn't a good product. He never believed he wasn't the guy to make money on it. He's a sociopath. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He wasn't having those doubts that, regular people have. So, so that's a constant balancing act. And then I think, you get into these communities and you get this constant barrage of, look at me, I did 20 deals and I made, $14 million by, bottling unicorn farts or something like that. And, you get into these things because I'm like, oh, like, why is Eddie, or why does Paula, or why can they do it? And I might call them up and get in there and try and figure it out. And lots of times I find out that they're just full of shit. Like, they're not doing that. And it's like, so
it's that is the thing, right? With social media nowadays, it's definitely hard to really find the truth behind somebody's business. They could show like this amazing fix and flip they did and show a big fat check, but in reality, they may not have made anything because all the stuff they have to pay, right? So there's a little bit of misconception in there for sure when it comes to
and I mean,
somebody's image.
Yeah, and that iceberg's big, I'll tell you. Like, I'm in a deal now, not a good deal. Not because anybody did anything wrong, just because, it just happens. But, you're in it for a bunch of time. And like, I'm trying to get my taxes together. And anybody who has like tax burden, probably put in an extension. You got to get your taxes done by October. And I'm trying to get this operator on one of my properties to get something done, right? Somebody I invested a big chunk of money on. Like, and I come to find out yesterday, right, that this guy's LLC hasn't filed taxes in 5 or 6 years, right? And it's like, oh,
Geez.
yeah, exactly. That's like, how do you unravel that? And like, I'm a pretty savvy investor, I think, especially compared to the vast majority of the people in these communities. And like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't, how am I going to unravel that? So, and this guy is I don't know what you want to call him, right? He's on stage talking about stuff. He's doing, communities and meetups, and he's a leader. And, that's what we got here. So there are a lot of people who are like, causing chaos. Like, Pace will say that, just get out there, cause chaos, and just do it. Well, okay. But like right now I'm unraveling a ton of chaos. And,
Yeah, it's definitely a bad situation, and I'm glad you started talking about a case that you're into, right? Because that goes into the lending business side again, right? As
yeah.
people, sometimes people, the easiest way people can get into the business is either you have lots of time or you have money. And if you have money, you could either go acquire a property using conventional, like a conventional loan, or using like a DSCR loan, or you could potentially partner up with somebody that's already an operator, like what Justin mentioned, and then you just deploy capital in their projects. That's when you have capital. So, going into that lending side, being a private money lender in real estate, what are some of the things that you said even you, right, that you didn't see that coming? What are some other things though that you would like give as pointers to people that want to get into the lending space? I know there's like a whole bunch of them, but maybe your top 5 things that you'd say, Edgar, don't do this, don't do that, and this is why.
All right. Well, um, yeah, the first on is, I think people need to like really look in the mirror and decide, some things about themselves and their ability to dot their I's and cross their T's. When you've done the number of deals I've done, and I've done a lot of deals at this point, you will, at least in my case, right? You'll get a year, 2 years down the road and find out you didn't do something, right? You just missed something. And there should probably be a checklist or a SOP, like you said, to get that done. But a lot of us are learning new things every time we do this. So I would say, look very closely at yourself and your ability to do the right things in a deal. I would then say, we're always going to look at who we're lending to or investing with to see what kind of person they are. You can't do too much there, right? You just simply can't do too much there. Background checks, credit checks, there's not too much you can do there, which can be challenging, right? If you're a PML and the deal is going to pay $5,000, you're like, oh, I got to spend, almost $5,000 to do background checks and transaction coordinator and contracts. And next thing I know, it's caused me $7,000 to make $5,000, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Another thing I would say is like, be realistic about your returns, your expected returns. Build in your downtime, right? So I'm constantly, and you may have heard me harp on this before, because I often do. I'll be like, the S&P 500 is not exciting. It is not sexy, and it's but it's got a 70-year track rate of an average rate of return of 6 to 8%, right? That return I won't go so far as to say no risk, but it is exceptionally low risk, right? If the S&P, the top companies in our country
Yeah.
are or the world go away, we probably have some
Be a
bigger
different
issues.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, we
You'd
probably
be
got
worrying about something different.
yeah, we're probably in a more oh my god, we're all going to die situation, right? So I always say that, and you'll get people who will be like, but it goes down. But again, it goes down, it goes up. But average rate of return for 70 years is 6%.
Yeah.
That's no work, no effort. You do a PML deal, lots of work if you're doing it right, lots of effort, lots of follow up. If it goes wrong, boy, does it turn into a pile of work. And you're going to have tax events on every turn. I think people really miss what the tax is. Typically, like, these Gators, PML deals, they are going to be short-term capital gains or, in basic income. The tax burden is very, very high, very high.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my ETFs, my exchange traded funds, retirement funds, things like that, that's tax advantaged, and it's going to be, long-term capital gains when I get it. So look at that stuff and
Absolutely.
qualify it, and then listen to your intuition, right? So I've seen everything in this, and I mentioned I did a podcast before, and I kept saying there's visible verbal gratuity, and what I meant was verbal commitment. So verbal commitment, like, you're talking to me, you're trying to get me to do a loan, and I'm like, okay, I'll do the loan. How many times after someone has given you that verbal commitment have they ghosted you or disappeared? It's fairly common. Maybe not you. People like you more, maybe. But my point being that, like, that verbal gratuity, that verbal commitment is worth the paper it's written on until they fund the deal. And
Right.
once they say they're going to do it to get the deal done, the PML, there's a lot of emotion that plays in there. And in that emotion, as a lender, I want you to say, people should say, did you hear something? Is your intuition, your Spidey sense, is the sniff test off? All right, then back out. But if you're just getting scared because you're afraid to put the rubber meets the road, then, dot your I's, cross your T's, ask someone for help, ask someone to look at things for you, and then try and still do the deal. So,
Dude, that's so good, man. I wanted to hop on that last comment you mentioned because those spidey senses, that intuition, when I did my first PML deal, it was crazy, man, because you said that and it brought me to that time when I hit wired that day. That same night, Pace was talking about people getting, people losing money because they didn't do the stuff correctly on that lending. And that deal did not go as planned. And even before that, I had another spidey senses that kicked in where the person that brought me into the deal said that they were going to put in money as well. And at the end, for whatever reason, they had issues with their IRA. They couldn't pull money out, so she was not able to fund. And that was another clue for me that I was like, man, maybe I shouldn't lend this money out. So, you hit it, right? It's like those little things you got to be able to capture when you're getting into this lending business. If you're a private money lender, if you're using your own capital, you're bringing capital from other people, right? There is a huge responsibility
yeah,
upon
yeah,
you, right?
yeah. I mean, and I try and write notes after my calls, but like everybody, I get busy and I forget. But there are little things, listen to people and things they say. I was talking to a guy recently. I like the guy. I mean, I haven't given him any money, but I like what he's doing. He's giving me value. I'd like to give him value. But he was talking about hard money rates, and he set a rate which seemed kind of low to me for hard money, right? And then we got further on later down the road, and we were talking about a deal, and he said he was using Kiavi. And I was like, well, then now something really doesn't add up, right? Kiavi ain't doing a low hard money lend, right? I found them to be pretty high on their hard money. So,
10, 11%, 12.
Yeah, exactly. So Do I disqualify him? No, I think maybe he's moving too fast, but I note that I'm like, this doesn't smell right. This is like
Right.
it's something for me to dig into if I need to dig into. So just little things like that. The more you talk with someone, the more you can have those little things. And a lot of these people, apologies, a lot of these people, and I'm super versed in the Reed Clanahan and the O'Shawn Williams and 5 other notorious scammers. They all had a lot of these little things where you were like, what? This is just like 1 and 1. It ain't equaling 2, buddy. So tell me more, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. That's so good right there, man. Being able to read somebody, being able to have your own intuition into, little things like that, definitely make a big difference in this space, because the space is a lot about relationship, but if you don't have that intuition, you don't understand how to read people, you may be able, people are going to take advantage of you, and that is sad, right? Because I mean, we all want people to succeed. I think that's part of us as humans. We want to help each other, but there are some people that are just takers, and so I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think we've brought it up on the channel before, where you do have to have that intuition, right? Or if you don't have it, ask questions, right? Ask other people questions about the deal. Get other people's opinion, um, to get you some feedback. So thanks for bringing that up, because it's important.
yeah, I mean, it is. And yeah, I mean, they do say this, you do hear this a lot, but if you start feeling like anything's wrong with the deal, don't deal with the deal. Maybe someone will be mad at you. Maybe they won't work with you. You might cause their deal to fall through. But, I always try to look myself in the mirror and say, what could I have done to change this situation? Right.
Mm,
Right. What could I have? So if I'm got a deal and I'm waiting for somebody to fund and they don't fund, like I need to look in the mirror and say, I did not make them comfortable. Right. It's not my
hmm
fault. It's not their fault. They didn't fund. It is my fault. That's the way I look at it. I did not successfully convince them that I was a good person to partner with.
right.
And that's the same way if I do a deal, and I'm in several, right? I'm in a lot of deals. I'm in a couple where I'm not happy with the deal. Like I'm totally unhappy in a couple, right? And and I have to look at it, and I want to call the operator and be like, you jerk. But I have to go back and look in the mirror and ask myself, like, what could I have done to make this better? And some of it is, you don't know what you don't know, and I know now I won't let those things happen again. And I've learned, but yeah,
Could you share one of those lessons you learned from one of those
yeah,
opportunities? I know you mentioned one earlier, right? About the tax situation on their LLC structure. Um,
you can't make this
that one
stuff.
is, yeah,
You
that's
can't make this
crazy.
stuff up, man. So yeah, so there's a couple of deals I did last year, and I when people are say if you have money you can invest, like I'm care I'm like I don't want to be like I have money, right? But I have more money than some people, and so I am capable of writing some checks, right? And
Hmm.
run I've written quite a few, including to people like Pace in his accredited investor fund. Um, and so I've gotten into a bunch of deals because I'm just the PMP, the private money
Sure.
partner, right? Because I'm looking to be involved, do real estate and stuff like that. But I don't have time to manage day to day. I don't have
Right.
time to place a tenant or all the garbage that comes along with that. Like I just don't have to. My personal portfolio, like that's all in management. I look at it hopefully once a quarter, and like anyway, I'm getting off into the weeds. So did these deals. They had pretty good returns, right? Um, they're co-living deals, and in one of them, I just don't think we did as a group the level of digging in on the rents we were get and the demand
Mm,
for a property, right? from day one, we've had vacancies, right? And though in the
Wow.
co-living, right? In the co-living, right? If you have a vacancy, like, you know, you could maybe have one or two, but if you have 2 rooms out of 8 rooms, those are probably your profit. If we're
Yeah.
right, like more
Yeah.
than likely a 2 room out of 8 room, or, you know, 1 room out of 5 or whatever, that's probably your profit. That was your cash flow. So the cash flow is
Yeah.
now gone, right? And so that would be one thing. Like the deals, the deal, you really have to get into that. And in these situations, I was a little too trusting. You know, these people, again, they're podcasts and they're talking people and they're leaders and they're not, no offense to you, um, but it's like, you know, I had the sense of I probably didn't dig deep enough, and, you know, who knows, I probably would. One of the deals I almost certainly still would have done. One of the deals I probably would not have done. So,
Right.
um, let's see. Oh, and then sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Like I had an
Yeah.
EMD deal, and I'm sure there are other gators that are like, how can you not know that? I didn't know it, right? Nobody raised it to me. I didn't see it coming. It's like, this escrow went on for 5 months. 5
5 months.
months.
Holy smoke.
And in the end, it failed, right? So I had not a small amount of money sitting in escrow for 5 months. I made nothing on the deal, right? Because
Wow.
we canceled. I got my money back. I got my money back, thank God, right? That's
Yes.
but, you know, so in those deals and the deals with the PMPs, I would say I didn't know about performance clauses, or I didn't think about that, right?
Mm,
Now, if I'm going into something like that, I'm going to have a clause that says, like, you're going to do this and this, and like whatever they say the cash flow is, I'll give them a huge wag, right? 50%,
sure.
right? If you're not within 50% of your projections, then you're out and I'm taking over, right? And I think that's totally reasonable,
Mm,
because I'm giving you a huge berth. But, you know, I'm in 2 deals where, like, yeah, love them, good people, not trying to screw me, but it's not
yeah.
happening. And this is like, you know, I got 6 figures in these deals. I just like, yeah, I don't need you. Get out. I
Yeah.
want you. You know? So performance clauses, and that would go for the EMD. The EMD is like, I would gate that time, you know, points up front. You gotta, if I wire money, you gotta pay me something, that right up front. And then, so those things I would say
Mm,
my biggest lesson over the last year is kind of the performance clause, and the ability for me, if I have to get in and wipe somebody out, right? We all think about the legal process of foreclosing and all of this.
mm-hmm.
Set that up front. Set that criteria up front. Like, I'm not going to have to go through the foreclosure process. We're going to have whatever it is, a pre-signed in the operating agreement, whatever it is, that if
You're gonna
XYZ
deed
doesn't
the
happen,
property back to me.
I step in and you get the hell out, right? That's it. Because you, like, a lot of these deals on the PMP side of things, basically you're bringing money, they're bringing everything else. Well, if they don't bring everything else and I brought the money, get out.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah, man, I wanted to touch on that performance clause, you know, because that is, guys, please, hopefully y'all taking notes, because this is like amazing, right? And it sucks, right? Because now we're learning from Justin who made those mistakes. So please, please, you know, take notes on this, guys, because performance clause is so important, especially, you know, Justin was talking about a co-living property. So just for those that may not be familiar what a co-living property is, it's typically a single family home where they convert it from a potentially a 4 bedroom to a 7 bedroom or a 10 bedroom, maybe, you know, or just as an example, and they rent it by the room. So, you know, each room is rented by the room, and they charge, if they has a private bathroom, they'll charge a little bit more. If it's a shared bathroom, they'll charge a little bit less. So that's kind of the structure there, right? So what Justin was sharing with us is, hey, if you're telling us upfront when you're raising the capital that the cash flow is going to be this amount, and you don't meet those projections, I'm gonna have to step in and take controls, and that is so important, right? In this in the business like that, because it is a business. It's you're running a business under that property. So hopefully y'all took that. It's so important to make sure that clause is there in your operating agreement or a document you both have agreed on, because that is a huge takeaway, especially nowadays that there's co-living's popping everywhere, properties, right? Like in all states, because they, all these states need affordable housing, so that is a solution.
And
So thanks for sharing that, man.
attractive, which is part of the reason I was attracted to it. It's like I think a lot of us, if we're not on the sociopathic end of the spectrum, like to think that we're making things better, right? Like we want to help people. That co-living, also called pad splits. So pad split is like the main, like the Airbnb of this model. We all think we want to do it, but there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk, and you also. I've learned, I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm an expert, because I guess I'm, I rarely say such things, but I would go so far to say I know quite a bit about pad splits and co-living at this point. Learned at the School of Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing those tips, man, and some of the hard lessons you've learned. But along those hard lessons, I'm sure you've had some good wins, right? Because and you have a solid portfolio that you said is being managed by a property management company. So pretty awesome. And Justin, I'm so grateful, man, you took Friday to chat here with me. I respect your time, man, and I know you're busy. I know you said you'd rather be on the bike, so
oh no. Well,
come to Georgia, man. We got some cool trails down here.
let me tell you one quick thing here. And it's a long anecdote, but I want to give Morgan. I want to shout out Morgan, because when we were talking originally about the scam group, right? I was a chicken, right? So straight up, I was afraid to do it, didn't want to do it. She was the one who had the backbone to start the group, and like she's the one. Awesome. And while I maybe day to day do a little more with it, like that group doesn't happen without her, because she was the one who said, I don't care if anyone comes after me. I'd like, she kept talking to people who were getting taken advantage by the same scammer. And she's like, this is ridiculous that we can't put in the Facebook groups that this person's a scammer. They'll delete our post. So where can we do that? She wasn't afraid. I was afraid. So.
Big shout out to Morgan. Hopefully an invitation for you to join us on my channel here next time. I'll reach out to her.
I definitely, she's if you want to have a tale of woe, I mean, she's doing well in real estate. Don't get all in all, but like she talk about some hard knocks, man. She paid her dues.
Well, awesome. I'll definitely reach out and see how I can connect with her and have her here on the channel. Yeah. But Justin, again, man, I'll let you go to do some bike riding, man. I really enjoyed our conversation, dude. Anything, where can people connect with you, man? If people want to, you go to meetups there in California, or you have an Instagram, where can people follow you?
Yeah, I mean, I go to the Gator meetups. Sometimes I go to the Subto if I know about them. I like the Gator meetup a little better. So you can see me at the Gator meetup in San Diego. I am also Instagram Justin Invests. That's my handle. I am very spotty on my posting, but I am also, I've got a link tree there, and you can DM me there and I will definitely respond. I do like to talk about real estate. I just say, tell me what we're talking about. Every once in a while, somebody calls me, they get my phone number and they call me, and I'm like, give me, like, explain to me who you are before we start jumping into things. Like, there's 20,000 people in this community. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. Awesome. For sure. Guys, connect with Justin, Wealth of Knowledge. He's out in California. Definitely, we don't like to say pick people's brain, right? But hey, find how you can bring value. Connect with Justin for sure in California. But for now, everybody, I hope everybody enjoyed and took some gold nuggets from Justin here. Thanks for sharing again, Justin, and catch y'all on the next one. Peace out. I'm going to hit end record here. Thanks, man. That was fun.